Welcome, everybody. Frank, what's up, buddy?
What's up? How's it going?
How's it going, man?
It's going. How about you?
Well, in the interchangeable life of wedding business growth, it is you and me. Chris Dis says, hello, everyone. How's the Marquee Show? We got to talk about that before we get going here tonight. But I'm doing good, man. Back from Chicago. Excited, as Chris Dix mentioned, the Marquee Show, back from that. And just excited for tonight's show. This is like a culmination of what we've been through for the last couple of months on Clubhouse, now coming together live, not just hearing our voices, but also seeing our faces together. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, man. No, I mean, we're glad to have you back. Missed you last week, but super pumped that you got to go to Marquee. And super jealous being a fellow DJ that I was not able to go. But, hey, it's cool. You hit Marquee, right? Wedding Business Growth present in Chicago. I'll hit the Expo Wedding Business Growth present in Atlantic City. And then next year, maybe we'll be able to hit a few of them together.
We're straight checking boxes, man, which is what matters. You know what I mean? Let me get this banner off of here. I'm slacking on my duties here as the producer of the show. But yeah, no, I got to tell you, Chicago was everything I thought it was going to be. Now when I say we, it was myself, Luke Renchin, who was with me again this year. Raymar was with us the first time we went. And this was I want to say it was in it makes sense that it was in 2018. And then I wasn't able to go in 2019. And then, of course, last year they didn't have it. So technically this year was the third year. And so when we were there in 2018, our plan was to try, because as anybody who knows us knows, we're baseball fans. And so we try to go to a baseball game any chance we can. So we were hoping to try to go to a Cubs game at Wrigley Field and then go to a White Sox game as well. But the Cubs were out of town in 2018 when we were there. So we were only able to go to a White Sox game. And I don't say that bad, like that park was really cool, but it was more of a modern new park. You know what I mean? So the nostalgia and the old school flavor of Wrigley is just almost unmatched. And so we were able to do that this year when we went, and it was kind of sad to not have Raymar there with us, because this was kind of the last time we were all together. That's where we were. So from that standpoint, it was a little sad, but it was still nice to go to the game. And we kind of joked and laughed, and we were like, if Raymar was here, he'd be taking pictures of this and that. And it was just, even though he wasn't physically there, he was still there with us. So it was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. People who are impactful in your life and make a difference in your life. You know what I mean? When you go do things that remind you of them for whatever reason, it's always really nice. And, even though of course it's also equally bad, typically the good outweighs the bad, remembering those really fond times. So, I mean, I'm glad that you all kind of got to do that. And I mean, it's nice to have, I don't want to say full circle, but one of those moments where you kind of get to bring it all back together again and, and honor the memory of someone that was important.
Right. No, absolutely. And on top of that, I want to make sure that I don't make this all about baseball, because as much as that was fun, the show itself was really a great show too. It was, we were talking about it on a podcast I was on last night. And interestingly enough, the showroom floor was almost like 80. I said last night 90, that might have been a little excessive. 80 to 90% was photo booth stuff on the showroom floor, but 80 to 90% of the educational part of it was DJ related stuff. So it was kind of a cool mix of those two things. And there were some new speakers that I hadn't heard before that did some really great topics. I mean, these are guys that I know, but like Nate Nelson and Nick Spinelli and Dave Landers, Digital Dave. Those guys did some great presentations. And of course, Mike Walter was there and he did an awesome job. Alan Berg, he did an awesome job. Chad Blackburn, I'm trying to remember everybody, but these guys all they really brought some solid, it just made me feel good to see that people are excited about their businesses getting back on track. It's exciting to see that people are not burying their head in the sand, but more so it's time to get to work. It's time to get back out there. And not only am I going to get out there, but I'm going to help you do the same thing. And I thought that was an awesome message.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, look, it's what everybody needs right now in this industry. So, whether you're a DJ or you're a caterer or a coordinator or a photographer, I mean, it doesn't even matter, Yeah, there were some states that were lucky and got to kind of like venture on as if little happened,
Mm-hmm.
but then there
Mm-hmm.
were others that didn't get so lucky, and people, weren't able to survive that. And some people were lucky enough to survive that. And the ones that did, everybody needs a little boost right now. And
Yeah.
I mean, with all the other stuff that's good, knowing everyone's getting back to work and knowing that the community wants to share again is really, really awesome. I know we always say we don't want to drill home just the DJ stuff, but like, I'll take a second to brag on the DJ community any day of the week. We couldn't be more helpful with each other, in my opinion. You've got your people, that maybe don't meet that, but for the majority, a lot of people want to really help.
Sure. And I mean, like you said, it's the world we live in. So it's what we're familiar with. And anybody who is in their segment of the industry has kind of that same kind of thing going on. And then of course there's experiences where you can be a part of, which brings all of those folks together, which is really, really cool. I definitely have to give a shout out to KC, who's the person who put that show on. It was just really well put together. Very much looking forward to going to it again next year. And, I'm a big fan of the 5 love languages. And to me, in that 5 love languages, they talk about your tank needing to be refilled and how that works. And I think there's also a motivation tank within all of us as well. And it's easy to get knocked off track, and it's easy to let things happening in life and things happening in your business knock you off track. And those types of experiences and getting around people that, again, are not making excuses and not, dragging each other down, but instead saying, hey, how can I help you fix that? How can I help you make that better? Let's talk about what you're going through, because maybe I've gone through it before myself, and I can offer you some advice of how I was able to get past it. And to me, that's just priceless shit right there, man. Like, that's top notch.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't wait for my opportunity in August. So
yeah, you'll have to let me know how
ready.
AC. I'm disappointed that I'm not going to be able to go to AC, but I think I think you're obviously gonna represent us very well, and you're gonna love the experience. So
yeah,
excited about that. What did I miss while I was gone, though? I mean, anything exciting?
No, I mean, officially started the new job last week, so I'm officially a project manager for the state of Virginia as of Friday, which is awesome. Nice. And is really going to be helpful moving forward, and kind of some things that we're kind of, looking into getting into a little bit in the wedding industry. So super pumped about that. Other than that, this weekend we've got some birthday stuff. Last weekend, or was it last? No, it was 2 weekends ago now. Father's Day stuff, and yeah, man, I'm just excited. Had two really good weddings this weekend. One was the first wedding at a brand new venue here in Charlottesville that was basically like a big tent, but like on the side of a mountain. Like, they literally cleared off a side of a mountain and like made like 3 levels. It was like a terrace kind of thing. And on the top was the tent, which had like a mountain basically surrounding it on all sides but one. And on that one side, it was just like looking out over the Blue Ridge Mountains. It was a pretty incredible spot. And then on Saturday, we got to put on the biggest single light show we ever got to put on, which was just fun. Like, from the nerd out side of being a DJ, was fun for us. But both weddings went really well. And, kind of like we've talked about, everybody's kind of getting back to the swing and having a good time. Dance floor's full, right? And just, which always makes for a good time for us. So yeah, I mean, I had a pretty good weekend.
Sweet. Very good. Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's jump into things here. And thanks everybody for joining us. We're excited to have you here. If you're in the chat, we saw Natural Aura check in, Busy Bee checked in. Anybody else out there that hasn't done so yet? Chris Disk, of course, checked in as well. Let us know who's watching. Let us know where you're at, who you are, and we want to definitely give you a shout out, and we want you to be a part of the conversation. If you have questions, if you have anything you want to input, that's what the chat's there for. So be a part of that, and we love hearing from you all, and we love being interactive with you all, and not just feeling like we're just talking to each other kind of thing, right? So feel free to do that. beyond that, man, like I said earlier, this is just a really cool, it's like in the series of really cool shows that we've been able to do with just phenomenal dynamic people that we've met, through our involvement in Clubhouse. And I mean, it's well documented on our show that's how you and I connected with each other, and you and I and Nick kind of connected with each other. And a lot of the last, handful of guests that we've had on the show as well, we've all connected through this crazy app called Clubhouse, where, it's just so cool how that's brought us all together. And it's kind of opened our network, if you will, to just some absolutely dynamic people. And one of those is on with us tonight. And realistically, we probably should have had him on way before now, but the schedule allowed the opportunity to do it, and he was available, so it worked out perfectly. And so I'm glad. This is an awesome day after my birthday gift to have Fausto on with us. So
happy belated birthday!
Oh, thank you. I'm finally 21. Nah, like times 3. I feel
21
like
for the 21st time. No.
Right? Exactly. All right, so let me read the bio, and then we're going to get it rolling here. So Fausto is the co-founder of Blue Elephant and Catering, Bash Wedding Marketplace, LA Blue Wedding Brokers, and co-owner of Real Maine Wedding Magazine. Fausto began his career in catering and events planning 35 years ago, although when you see him, you'll never believe it, in Philadelphia. His work has been published in 8 states and featured in one hardback book. He has an eye for detail and production and is passionate about catering high-quality, memorable events for his wedding and corporate clients alike. Fausto was the 2019-2020 president of, and currently sits on the board of, the hopefully I'm saying that right, the Biddeford-Saco Rotary Club. I probably butchered the hell out of that. A member of the Leading Caterers of America, and is a member and board of directors of the International Caterers Association. All that means is Fausto does a whole lot, and everybody who's a part of what he does is more beneficial because of it. So without further ado, let us bring our good friend on, Fausto. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how are you? Thank you
Good,
for
man.
that intro. I'm like, did Ruben write that?
how much of that did I butcher up? Because I feel like some of those names I really butchered badly.
Well, it's Biddeford-Saco, which is interesting because it took me forever to figure it out. So like Biddeford, England, Maine has every city in Maine, or every little sector here, is named after a country. So there's Paris, there's Norway, there's China, there's Mexico, Belfast. It's insane. So it's Biddeford, Maine. So
I had no idea.
Oh, it's crazy.
Well, just to kick things right off, Fausto, I think many people would, and we were kind of talking about it before the show, many people would probably echo the fact, and I have to admit, when we first connected with each other on Clubhouse, I got to be honest, I was a little intimidated. I was like, man, who is this guy? Like, he's so direct, and he's so smart, and he's like, man, I wish I could be like this guy. And then as we kind of got to know each other more, I kind of was able to see the, we'll say, softer side of you, and it's been really cool getting to know you.
Thank you for calling me smart. First of all, I know I am all the time, but smart. That I'm loving that you said that, and I think people misinterpret me a lot because they see one side, and I try to make sure that everybody understand it's always just about business at the end of the day, and we went into this as a business. And so if I'm direct, it's because I want to save you money. And at the end of the day, I've said this to you before on Clubhouse, I am not here to be my client's friend. As much as I want to, it's too much. That's way too much baggage to take on. And we do 133 events a year, weddings alone. That's a lot of friends. And unless you're bringing my daughter a gift, we're good.
Well, no, I love that you said that, because I've always tried to, encourage people, and especially newer business owners that come into the industry. I've always tried to encourage people that if you can understand this line between being friendly with your clients and being friends with your client, and it is okay to go up to that line if you want to, but try not to cross that line. I love that you said that, because we forget that even though we want to be friendly with them, it is still a business transaction. If there is a contract involved, it is a business transaction. And you hope that you never have to go to the ugly side of that contract. But when you possibly do, you don't want it to be with a friend. You want it to be with somebody who understands this is a business relationship.
And friends generally want discounts. So that's another thing. So that helps in keeping that relationship sort of kind of like, okay, this is business, not a friendship. That's why it's going to be full price.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I think it's a common misconception, but it's hard in this industry, right? You're dealing with two people and their family on one of the most influential days of their lives.
Correct.
It's really hard to keep that line drawn when it could be so easy that you just like even accidentally fall over it, not even intentionally, you know? So when you're doing that, it's a really fine line you have to walk, because like David said, I mean, that was perfect. You definitely have to be friendly. You have to care for what you're doing for them. But once you start chumming it up a little too much, you know, that's when things can go wrong. Whatever that is, like you said, bad side of the contract, discount on a future event, an expectation of you doing more than what was contracted. All of those things can happen if you cross that line too far.
I was once in a room with a group of preferred professionals, and we were all sitting down and we were all talking and shooting the breeze. And then this one particular venue owner / bar person, she owns a bar as well. She said, "Oh, I'm having trouble and I'm being sued." And I just turned to her. I said, "How's that friend working out for you?" And I wanted to drive home the point. And this is during COVID. So all those friends you had in 2020 turned around and sued you. You know why nobody sued me and there were no bad reviews and everybody moved quietly into the new year? Is because there were no expectations of friendship there. This was a business, and it stated it right on their contract. And we easily moved them to next year. And for those who didn't stick with it, there was no money returned. Zero. So because it's all there, and we explain it at the very beginning, and we take away the dirty part of like, you're not going to get this back. This is going to happen. If you break up, death, anything, none of it. It will not happen. Just like when you go to the dentist, if you miss the appointment, you are still getting a bill for that missed appointment, and they don't want to hear that your mom died, that your child got sick. You're still getting the bill. They're gonna charge you, and so that's just how I do it for me. So. That's a little bit of my relationship with this industry sometimes, if that makes sense.
I love it. I mean, I think there is a equal dynamic of being business first, but still being able to be a likable person. Like you don't have to be this rigid, like robotic person. But still be able to, as probably some hip hop song says, about your business. Like it's still okay to be about your business, but be a fun person to be around at the same time.
Exactly. And I'm a lot of fun for those 5 hours. I am your best friend. You don't even know that I'm literally counting it down until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever is your end time. I'm counting it down in my head, and I love you to death. I am all there for you. But soon as that clock strikes 12, we're done.
Yeah.
It's on to the next.
Yep. To quote the great Jay-Z, on to the next one. Yep. Sorry, I don't know where all these hip hop references are coming from, but I'll keep rolling with them. Well,
you act like you're a DJ.
Yeah, that you'd think, right? Well, when it comes to relationships, I think probably one thing, not even I think, I know one of the areas that you're really strong in as it pertains to relationship is relationships with other vendors and the importance of that. Talk a little bit about that from your standpoint and your feelings on that.
I mean, for me, I have the word vendor drives me crazy, but there are people that are vendors and then I consider preferred professionals. And that difference, I don't think I have to explain. You know who you are. And it's the ones that come in and want to be the superstar of the event. And there is only one superstar, and that's the couple that's getting married. And at the end of the day, we should just sort of kind of be invisible. And when people can do that cohesively and work as a team when they come in, whether you were brought in by our production company or the client brought you in. And there's a lot of times when I have a renegade, either a DJ or a band, and they want to do their own thing. And I'm like, no, we're going to follow the timeline, and here's why. To me, that really strikes a chord. And so I keep track of all of that. I have my vendor relations, but I also have my PPC, which is my preferred professional currency, that I start tracking at the start of every year at the beginning to the end. And one of the things that I do with that is, it allows me to know how long I have worked with an individual and how much money I've made you. So if you're going to pull any of that nonsense, money talks. And if you take away $100,000 a year from somebody's pocket, they're going to feel it, because now they got to figure out somebody else to fill that void that I'm no longer willing to fill, because you aren't willing to be nice to the staff, be nice to the venue. You want to come in and leave your station. You know, for instance, if we are working with the DJ, I'm not there to clean up after you. A little pick me up of putting your stuff in the trash can goes a long way. I have fed you, I have taken care of you, and now you've left, and your station behind you is full of all the bottles you've drank, the water you've drank, the dirty dishes, all the things you couldn't bother. Those are things that for me really trigger something in my relationship with preferred professionals as opposed to a vendor. And that's how I sort of put them in different compartments for me. So
love that. Love that. Hey, Gabriel, good to see you on with us tonight. Frank, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I love the preferred professionals because, you know, it's so different. It's the difference of, as a DJ, right? One of the things that we get a lot is cinematographers and photographers wanting to put their bags near or around us. You know, just a simple, hey, is it okay if I put this here? That's all I'm ever looking for, you know, just something super easy, because sometimes just based on the setup or them not thinking about what it looks like from the other side, from the guest side, hey, can you just scoot it over a little bit more? You know, I don't want to touch the stuff, but it's those little things that go a long way, you know, and so I love that you point out, you know, just being courteous to everybody around you. And I also love the fact that you pointed out not wanting to be the superstar, right? Because every vendor at one point in their career has probably had a moment where they felt like that was them. I'm at that superstar level now. And you really have to remember that it doesn't matter if you're ever that superstar. Ultimately, it's not your day ever. It will never be your day. Even if it's a corporate function, whether it's a family function or if it's a wedding, there is someone else that's the focus, and it's never going to be you as the professional. So I love those points.
And it's sort of like saying, you know, like I never go into a wedding going, oh my God, I'm going to get my next client out of here. The reality for us, I mean, occasionally I will do one sister after another, but the problem is here. When I say that I really do fall in love with the client for the time of their wedding, yes. I know that I won't get a sister because she doesn't want to be outshined. So for instance, if I come in and they've hired me, they don't want everybody who was at her sister's wedding coming up, oh my God, it's Fausto. Fausto's doing my wedding. Fausto, oh my God. And everybody has now taken the attention away from the new couple. And now you're sort of kind of stuck. So I make it a point never to bring cards to jobs. I'm already at a venue I do all the business at, so I don't need to advertise. It's right there. I make sure that the other professionals that are there can bring their cards, but they should really keep them in their pocket and not put them out, because this is not a bridal show or a wedding show. I'll be politically correct. And so you have to sort of kind of make sure that you are not soliciting. And I understand everybody does it differently, but think about it. If your child was getting married, do you want everyone that you are paying to work the event soliciting for somebody else or taking care of you? And that's how I always approach everything, because I have a daughter who will someday get married, and I don't want to look into a sea of a room of all of these preferred professionals that I have hired to take care of her day, soliciting for the next person or putting business cards over at the bar so people can pick them up. That just wouldn't work for me. And it shouldn't work for anybody, because at the end of the day, you were hired for this time period. So,
well, to me, there's two. Sorry, Fausto. I was going to say, for me, there's two pieces on that. Number one is exactly what you said, is being present in the moment, being present with what's going on right there and then. And then the second piece to that, to me, is if you do your job the way you're supposed to do it, people will seek you out. There's no reason for you to have to billboard anything. The people that resonate with what you're doing, whether it's another professional that's there or whether it's a member of the audience, if they like what you're doing, if whether you're feeding them, whether you're taking pictures, whether you're playing music, whether you're officiating, if they like what you're doing, they will seek you out.
Yeah, I agree. And two, I find it interesting, because one of the things that I've said this before, and this goes into the whole vendor relationship and preferred professionals. everybody is so determined to be on lists, but they forget the one thing. And I've said this before in different rooms. You have this client that you're working with, but they're really not your client. And I want you to think about it. They are never your client. The only person that's your client is the venue that you have so much wanted to be on that preferred list. And now you're on it. And then you treat the venue like crap. You ruin their floors. You don't bring gaff tape to tape down the extension cords. All of the things that we have to hear the venue owners say, because they're not saying it directly to you, but we get to hear all of that. And then you leave the place dirty and then walk away, but you were really inside your actual client. And that one client that you think is your client has left and you're done. So for a photographer, let's say they have a longer relationship with the couple. Let's just be honest about it. They're there for engagement shots. They're there for the wedding. And 6 months later, they're doing their photos and photo albums and possibly babies. So the longest relationship in the industry is really a photographer, because it's just the way it works. But for DJs and bands and planners and caterers, we're sort of done. Once that 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock hits, we're done. We're packing up and we're leaving. But we need to take a step in this industry, and especially if you're going to create these relationships that are going to be long-lasting. And when I mean long-lasting, it's going to fill your bank account. It's to take care of the place that you are working at. Now, I'm not tented private venues. Those are a different animal. I'm talking about venues that strictly are like wedding palaces. They're cranking out weddings every weekend. And if that's making money, then that's where you should be. You know, that I have been venue driven my entire career. That's how I make my money. So the more lists I'm on, it also helps on your SEOs. And I find it interesting that we are constantly circling back with the same thing with people, and they don't understand that simple concept. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, the venue relationship is by far the most impactful, because it almost, you're going to have that outlier couple that they found that coordinator that they really want first, or they found that photographer that they really want to lock in first. But 95% of, it's just a rough guess there, but a large number of couples will be looking at a venue before they do anything else. And so if you're good, in good standing with that venue, and you're on that list, preferred list, or even verbal list that some venues are doing now, as opposed to a written list, if you're there and you're present for that venue in those moments, then you stay on that list and you continue to get pushed. And that, like you said, I love it. That is your client, because if you appease them, then they get you 10, 15, 20 events that year. And it's at a spot you're comfortable, and it's at a spot where your product is being maximized, because I don't need to think about where to set my stuff up. If I'm a DJ, I know where they want me to go. I know how to load in, how to load out. I can be more efficient. I can be there with them. I know that, this is going to be done over here every time. So I'm prepared. I'm ready. I speak to the client about it. I help them understand the experience that they're going to go through from my perspective when they need my help there. All of those things come into play, and it just increases your value to, like you said, that one-time client, but then also increases your value to that permanent client, which is that venue.
And when you look at it too, it's a no-brainer. I mean, let's take a venue that does Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And let's say you're the DJ that is booked for all 3 days. Instead of taking your equipment in and out, if you booked all 3 jobs, if they love you, you will be allowed to leave that equipment there for all 3 days. So your minimal in and out is 1 in and on Sunday out. And you have made money for 3 days. I mean, maybe just changing where your location is, but that's it. I mean, it's super easy. And those are the relationships that I try to explain to people to build. I mean, for me, one thing that always rings back in my memory bank is there's a castle. It's like an American castle in the outskirts of Pennsylvania. I did a lot of work there, and I was probably the only caterer planner allowed. So we were a planning company that happens to own a catering company attached to it. I could come in, and I mean, there were works of art there that were priceless. I mean, there was a libation bowl that dates back to before Christ walked the earth. And we didn't have security walking us. I could roam the building because they trusted us. They knew that we were going to take care of it. And there was this trust factor. And when you build that with a venue, you are no longer watched every time you walk in the door, to the point where the manager is saying, I want him here all the time. I can't make you exclusive, but I want him.
Here's what I love about everything in both y'all are saying is that you really have the capability to make all of this happen yourself. You can do this Monday through Friday. You don't want to do it on the weekends when everybody's busy, but you can make an appointment with somebody at the venue and you can ask them these kinds of questions. As Frank was alluding to, where should I be loading in and loading out? Should I, are you okay with gaffer's tape? Would you prefer that we used a mat or whatever because of the finish on your floors? What are the things that really are going to make you say what Fausto just did? We want this person. And then you're playing with house money because they've told you everything. They've told you everything to do. You just have to execute at that point. I'll tell you one thing that's interesting to me, and I know geographically, it's always fascinating how different it is. So one of the things, and Fausto, this is a great question for you, and Frank can chime in as well, but one of the things that I have really noticed over the last, I'm going to call it 5 years, if I really would put a time frame on it. Prior to that, like to me, I was knocking down the doors of venues left and right. And then about 5 years ago, there started to be this trend of all of these venues requiring couples, talking about weddings mostly, to have an outside planner to be involved in their event at that venue. So it became this situation where the planner has a lot of control in their hands. And I started wondering, is all of this effort with the venue where the cards should be played at now? Or the obvious answer is some of those cards need to be shuffled over to that planner, but do all of them need to be shuffled to that planner at that point? Or do you feel, I think I already know the answer, but do you feel like there still needs to be this play with the venue anyways?
No, because I think and I'm going to take my planner hat off. I think planners want to dominate and they want to basically create exclusives like caterers have done. So for 35 years, caterers knew the trick. And so the pyramid works one way. Here's your pyramid. At the top of the pyramid is the venue. Then you have catering. Then you have photography. Then you have music. And then you have planners. Somehow along the line, they want to up to right here and be second to control what's happening without asking for exclusivity. So it does not put them in the driving seat. And so now I'm going to put my planner hat on. Yes, I kind of like that, but I don't, because if I want that, then I want to go after it as exclusive so I control the whole shebang. And then my company runs it all. So we have 5 exclusives that are ours, and we're on 89 preferred professional pages that we do business with. Now, that doesn't mean I do business at every one of them, but it does help out. And yes, our company is blocked from certain venues because there is a planner that's already there and they play that game. And because we are a planning company, that would be directly taking food out of their mouth. But what happens is now all of a sudden, I always find it interesting because people say, oh, this venue only does, 6 figures. And I'm like, okay, are you counting everything? Because if you are the planner, if you are not making money off of every single person you have brought in there, don't talk to me about 6-figure venues. Because if the DJ is only making $1,500 and you ask him, hey, was that a luxury event? He's going to say, no, I could have played this at the Elks Lodge. Do you see the difference? If you're not making any more than what you already, it's like a venue saying, we're a 6-figure. Okay, how much were you? Well, we're 20,000. You weren't any more money. So that planners have tried to figure a way of taking it over without becoming exclusive. And I hope I don't offend a lot of my planner friends, but it's the truth. At the end of the day, it's broken down because a lot of times couples who go to venues, for instance, if you book a venue that's maybe $10,000 and you have a $70,000 budget, you might not have enough to pay the planner now and the catering and then the DJ and then the photography and everything else. So it's sort of kind of shifting a little bit and it's thrown a wrench in it. But venues got wise to that in 2020 when all the planners threw the venues under the bus. Not us, because I knew who my bread and butter was. And so when push came to shove and money needed to be returned, the planners were there saying, oh, you have to return the money to the DJs and then to the photographers and then to the venues. And they're like, no, we don't. Oh, no, I'm dealing with my couple. They're like, that wasn't your couple. You got that couple from us. And then there was this shift again. And so I I hate to say it. I think we're going to go back to where the pyramid was. It's going to be venue, then catering, photography, music, and then so forth. So I see that shift coming back, but that's just me.
I will not complain about that.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I find it really interesting that you bring that up. So part of me feels like, because I can actually say I've been in the business long enough to have seen that transition, where it went from primarily venues to now like a little bit more like planner run for a while. But I experienced a lot, and I had a lot of venues reach out to me that were venting because I have some, right, we talk about not like crossing the line into the friend zone, but with your preferred professionals, there's a way to be friendly and professional at the same time. And they were reaching out with some very scary stories of planners throwing their venue under the bus, so much so one planner even called neighbors of the venue to try to get the neighbors to force the venue to do certain things. It was, I felt horrible for them. And if that would have been me, I mean, I would have come out with my gloves on and probably would have hurt everybody, including myself, for making bad decisions. But it's tough. And I think that the other thing that happened too, which is why the transition happened in the first place, was I think that venues were putting out more money running events when they didn't feel like that was their responsibility to run the event. So if now I force you to get a planner, now I still make the same amount of money. I have one less staff on site, and then you go pay somebody else to be the planner. And I think they're starting to realize that may not have been the right move, because you empowered people who weren't truly invested in your business and your venue. And now 2020 happens, and that coordinator kept their job and showed up wherever that couple agreed to have their wedding, but in the meantime tried to facilitate getting a refund from everyone else.
Bingo.
Especially like I know me as a DJ, I was one of the first ones that were talked about being cut at different events. Oh, hey, we can only have 25 people. Sorry, we don't need music anymore.
Mm-hmm. You're non-essential. I can't tell you how many times I was told I'm non-essential.
Yeah, right.
And that all goes back to that sort of kind of feeling that they sort of wanted to take over this one realm. But a lot of venues, like I said, that's why we created the brokering department of our business. And what that means is we take over a venue, we broker it for them, we create their preferred professional list, and we hire their manager. Because I think venues need managers. They don't need a planner telling them what to do, because then it stays in control of the venue. And the venue retains the control of their property. And so what we do is we come in, we fix all the problems, we create a handbook for them so that everybody knows what the rules and regulations, where to smoke, where to go to the bathroom, don't go in the house. If it's a lodging facility, that's not a place for any of the vendors to ever be, because you can get in trouble for, if somebody stole something, not that somebody would steal, but how they blame us for everything. Yeah. And so we created the brokering department, which then gives the power back to the venue. And then it's a win-win, because it makes us shine and they remember us. But when I started my career 35 years ago, I was told by these two women, make sure you leave it better than you got it. So we photograph in and we photograph out. And we are always making sure that they sign us out to ensure that we will return there. And when I broke out on my own after leaving the company in Philadelphia, after a long stint with them for 10 years, and I went out on my own, I went to every venue that I did business with, and they took people off just to put me on. And that said a lot. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but it's because of how I treated their property. And I think there's the difference between this new shift that's happening. And it shows. There are, like, going back to, here you are as a vendor, or are you a preferred professional? And I know there was a follower who wrote something about nobody wants their business controlled.
Yep.
Absolutely. I agree 100% about that. But there are companies out there, like in Philadelphia, there's Expert Events, Harith Productions. I'll work for them any day. And then basically I come in under their umbrella and they pay me. So they're my clients. And so I don't have to deal with the couple at all. And so that makes it even like, so for us, if we do that as the production side of my business, I'll hire the photographer, and yes, you can meet the client, but they're not your client. I am.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. And so some people like that, but some people want to be the show. And I'm like, would you rather just have the money, or would you rather be the show? You know what I mean? You're still going to be able to produce a beautiful event, but we're all going to work under this umbrella. And so we do a handful of those occasionally, throughout the year.
I love that you said that, because I have in the past had experiences where it was kind of the other way around, where no matter who it was, some other wedding professional was kind of dictating, controlling. Let me put it this way. I feel like putting us in a position to not give the client what we were, meaning the couple, what we were hired to give them. And the first thought that comes to your mind is, well, if this is the way that the situation is going to be, then you should probably be my client. So that way I can fulfill what you want me to do. And I don't have a couple coming to me after the fact saying that I didn't give them what I promised what I was going to give them because you wanted me to give them something differently. So I love that you said that. And I think that is a healthy professional way to look at the situation. Before we go forward, I want to go back for just a second, because Frank, you said something that I've kind of had this hypothesis about as well. And Fausto, I want to get your take on it. Frank, you had said, and I'm paraphrasing, but essentially venues kind of saw this situation where they could have one less person on staff and then have this outside third-party planner kind of play that role per se, and allow the venue an opportunity to maybe save the salary of a staff member. Do you feel, Fausto, that was what created that shift, or is that just kind of like a frivolous thought that we've come up with to justify it?
No, you're right. They wanted to do something like that, but here was the problem. And then we sort of came in and said, look, I said, I don't mind my catering side working with a planner. And I don't always get the best responses from them, because I explain it to them. I said, look, this all boils down to money. You cannot come in as one person and dictate to my entire staff what to do, because number one, they are on my payroll. So for instance, if you tell Mark to move this table and he does and gets hurt, it's my workman's comp that gets hit, not the venue, not the planner. They walk away scot-free. Now, if you want to play dress up and you want to hire us, I'll work with you, but you're not going to get 15 free staff members to do your beck and call. So with venues, what they were doing, and a lot of venues that I do business with are family owned, so they were seeing this swift. They've become now the day of coordinators. And so what we're doing is really training them on how to create a timeline that works cohesively for all of the preferred professionals that are coming in for that day. So basically the ones that remain is music, the caterer, and the photographer, and maybe the videographer, and if you have a photo booth. Other than that there's the cake person's not staying, the flower person's not staying, rentals aren't. So those are your 5 people that need to be managed within that 5 hours, and the bar people. Other than that, it's pretty easy. And this could take us into another segment that we wanted to talk about, was timeline.
Yeah,
and if
absolutely.
you do a really good timeline, you will buy all of your preferred professionals a half an hour to eat, and we can get into that when you're ready.
Now, I was going to say this is a perfect segue, so let's just go for it.
So for me, when I'm creating it, I do take into consideration that everybody's there, and yes, we all have had that conversation about, but I have to be fed because it's in my contract. But there it is. It's in my contract. You did not make that contract with me. The client signed it. And if the client chose not to pay it on our end, there's nothing I can do. I will feed you because I'm a nice guy, but I want you to thank me, not the couple, because that's coming out of my pocket. So for instance, if you have a wedding 5 to 10, 5 to 6 is cocktail hour. By 6 o'clock, they're already in, because we bring them in about 5 to 6 minutes, get everybody down in their seats. And my staff is literally rolling around, making sure everybody knows where they're sitting, where their table's at, all of that good stuff, so that we can get them in quickly, so that we can get either the band or the DJ to line them up, correctly say their name, get them introduced, first dance, parent dances, toasts. And one of the reasons why I do not like breaking it up is you have everybody's attention in the room. I don't have to find anybody. They're all there. You don't have to tell them to stop talking. Now 6:30 comes. 6:30 to 7:30, you're serving dinner. Dinner is served. You have 200 people. You've served dinner in 11 minutes. I am asking all preferred professionals not to tap me, not to ask me for food. Give me 11 minutes, and then you can eat. You are not going to eat first. You're going to eat in 11 minutes after the last plate is served, because it's only going to take us 11 minutes, because we have this down to a science, because I only do plated dinners. By the time 7:30 rolls around, they are up, cut the cake, the last big thing that the photographer has to shoot, and then you can kick off the party for 2.5 hours of dancing, because it's over at 10, not 10:01, 10 o'clock. What's important is that dinner has to be good. It has to be wonderful. It has to be all of those things, but it can't dominate the evening. People remember the very beginning and the very end. If those two things work perfectly, everything else in the middle becomes fluff. But they remember a really good party if they danced for 2.5 hours and they're sweaty and they're exhausted and they want to drink because the music was phenomenal. 2.5 hours versus sitting at the table for 2.5 hours eating dinner doesn't work for me. And that buys all of the preferred professionals that are working a half an hour to eat their meal. And the last time I checked, 5 hours, half an hour break is what you're entitled by law. So just keep that in mind, because I'm a stickler for that. Or 2 15-minute breaks every 8 hours. So that's the law, So, I just want to make sure that everybody understands we always, as professionals, we want to feed each other, but also to take into consideration that the enormous staff that the catering team has, no matter what catering team is there, they're just eating in stairwells or very quickly or this and that, because they don't have the luxury of stopping, because plates have to constantly be picked up, glasses have to constantly be picked up, dinner has to be served, rooms have to be clean, broken glass on the dance floor has to be cleaned. That's all us. The rest of the humans that are working, because we hear all the time, I'm human and I have to eat. I'm like, well, what are we, aliens? Because we're eating on the run. And so I just want to point that out, that a very good timeline will work really well for you. And for me, I am not a fan of reviews. We have them. We have great reviews out there. I think I have 2 shitty ones, which I love looking at because they're funny as hell. But the reviews that come in always talk about our staff, always talk about the way we kept the event going. And David, if I can share this about that wedding that we did on the 19th. We had a wedding on the 19th of June, and as I was getting everybody down the aisle, I was ready to send down the bridesmaids, and a gentleman, her great uncle of the bride, had a heart attack. And my groom was a doctor, and 4 of his groomsmen were doctors. And in my mind, all I'm thinking about is the timeline. The oyster guy is shucking oysters up there. The charcuterie boards have been put out, and dinner is being prepped in the garage, because we work out of the garage. And that's in my head, while this gentleman is literally dead for 6 minutes until they brought him back to life. And then I have to push the reset button on this entire wedding, because there is no redo, because this wedding is from 2020, redo to this year. And now this happens, and you have to, like I said, separate the emotion. Once the ambulance took him away, we got the wedding back on track, got the guests back done, a little bit of humor, just excitement, got water for everybody, sit them back down. And then boom, 15 minutes into the cocktail hour is all it took. But by 6 o'clock, they were back in the room, 6:30 for dinner, 7:30 cut the cake. They were on buses and out of the venue by 10 o'clock. So keeping that in your mind, but the one thing, the music guy was my only glitch in the thing, because when he first arrived, I said, hey, house rules, 10 o'clock, music is off. Don't go 10:01. It is 10 o'clock. It is very strict in this town, and this venue is having a lot of trouble with the town. No problem. I'm really super excited. I'm stoked. I get to go home. It's a 2-hour drive. Perfect. I thought we had a really good relationship. 10 o'clock comes. He still wants to play more music. I have to go over there, and throws me under the bus. I don't really care, because it's still 10 o'clock. They signed a contract. It's 10 o'clock. I have to turn the music off. Yeah. So that's the rule. That's the stuff that again goes back to the professionalism that sometimes lacks in our industry, because if you are told several times that the music shuts off, I don't care if they are swinging off the chandeliers and having the best time. If you are told 10 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock. It isn't my rule. It's the town rule. And now you're not only going to get us in trouble, you could potentially shut the venue down. So those are the things. That was the only hiccup, and then he left me the dirty table and all the stuff and the trash to clean up, and didn't even say goodbye. So
damn those DJs.
And that to me is a renegade. And so that, and I'm not putting anybody down, because I know when I started my career, I thought maybe I was hot shit or whatever, but I've mellowed. And to me, I think it's really, the more you give everybody, and going back to the preferred professional currency, the more you track somebody, the more power you have, and not power over them, power with them, because it's a relationship. And for instance, I make my bar service $400,000 a year or more every year, except for last year because nobody made any money. And then my rental company, I'm their second highest renter next to the university. So when I call him, so for instance, I guarantee you that there's not a lot of people that on Saturdays can get a hold of a rental company. But my rental company is available to me until 2 o'clock if I've missed something or forgotten something. So where everybody else is like, how'd you get that? I'm like, because I have a really good relationship with them and I make them a lot of money and I'm loyal to them. So everybody else is jockeying all over the place. Stick to one person, make them a lot of money, and they will in turn do everything. They'll be your everything for you, and they'll treat your client with the utmost respect. And it becomes a us client. All of us are in it together. It's not like when I look in the room after I come in and I see my whole team that I've assembled and their clients paying them all, so they don't work for me. And I just take a sigh of relief, because I know I'm not going to have to fight with the band because they want to do a generational dance the minute dinner is coming out. And you're like, how the hell are you going to get them to all sit back down? They're going to go to the bar. They're going to go to the bathroom. They're going to wander outside to smoke, and dinner's coming out. And then they're going to say, my food's cold. Well, it's cold because you were standing over there for 15 minutes. So those are the things that separate the two classes for me.
Erwan, I'm going to get to your question in just a minute. I don't want to forget a couple points that I was thinking. Also, we had a person here who said yes. Unfortunately, under the moniker of Facebook user, that person who did that. So we know who you are. If you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give them permission to, or give us whatever permission to show your name and your Facebook photo, we'll know who you are.
And learn this recently. Let me just chime in. Learn this recently. If you've done that in the past and it is not working, you actually may. What's up, Terica? You actually may need to go to your settings under your permissions and go to StreamYard, the app, under your permissions in your Facebook settings to get that to flip on. Because I had that happen in one group where I couldn't get it to flip for that one group, and I had to go back in. So just food for thought. If it ever isn't working, that's how you get it to work.
Love it.
And if I was straight, I'd marry Terica. I'm telling you, straight, I'd marry her.
I think we'd all figure out a way to have shared custody. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that you said that really, I'm almost embarrassed to say that I never really thought about it until you said it, but wow, it's so powerful. When you were talking about somebody saying, they signed the contract to feed me, and then the caterer is in a position where the couple, again, let's say we're talking about a wedding here, the couple didn't pay to feed you. And I think you bring up such a valuable point that we as professionals in the industry need to remember that could be the case. And it's not right for us to take it out on you as a caterer when it's not like you're sitting there being an asshole, like, I'm not going to feed any of the other people that are here working tonight. It's like, man, that's so powerful. And I think about it logically, but I never really thought about it till you said it that way. That really makes such a good point. And I love your timeline concept. Like, I'll be honest, before you just said that, I've never really been kind of a big fan of doing a lot of stuff up front, because I kind of look at a wedding reception as almost like a roller coaster, and these ebbs and flows and highs and lows. And I think some of those little breaks to do some of those things, if they're spread out, is almost like kind of a built-in rest, built-in break. But I think there's other ways that you can do that on the dance floor as well. So hearing you explain it, really made a lot of sense to me. I want to get to Erwan's comment here because, first of all, I definitely want to make sure you saw this because I couldn't agree more. Talking about you, Fausto, your perspective is brilliant and your approach to managing the entire process. But he also asked a question, and this was when talking about the DJ who played longer and all of that stuff. And his question was, how do you change that relationship to make sure the DJs follow the rules? And just maybe your thoughts on that.
For me, I have 4 DJ groups, and I don't know if you have it in your areas, but there's sort of kind of a conglomerate. So they have all these DJs that work under their umbrella. So I have 3 groups like that. And those are the 3 that and I have specific DJs that I want to work with. Mm-hmm. And so within each of those groups. And we once a year meet with all of our preferred professionals, and we try to make sure, have I done anything wrong to you? You know, like, let's hammer it out now, fix it. And then I'm big. If I make a mistake, call me out on it, and then I'll fix it. I can't fix anything if I don't know. And so we're always kind of saying, and then I have this one DJ group, he loves to bring me pies, and I love him to death, but I hate pies. So I don't have the heart to tell him I hate pies. I know it sounds crazy, but it has worked for us. And as a matter of fact, his one of his DJs is actually playing for my daughter's quinceañera on Friday. And so they wanted to give me a discount. I said, I'm not looking for a discount. I'm paying you full price. But we all had a hard year. I said, that's not what I want. I just want you because I know you, and I feel comfortable with you. And there's not going to be any of this drama that comes with somebody that you don't know. So for me, it's a no-brainer.
You know what?
Well, I felt like the easiest answer to that question would be, if you don't want to work anymore, just don't pay attention to the rules. Like, that would be the easiest answer to that, right?
I was going to say that, but we just erase them from our, I'll have people that have come into our properties, and I just erase them from the list. And I don't care if the client booked you. We'll dump the client before we let you in.
Yeah, Frank, I want to go to you in a second, but this other thought I had when you were talking about calling you out on mistakes that are made, Fausto, I think that a good learning point, which you would think this doesn't need to be said, but I think it should be said anyways, is when those mistakes happen, don't call somebody out in the heat of the moment at an event. Make a note of it, email yourself, text yourself, do whatever you got to do to remember what happened, but address it in a professional manner in a time that makes sense. Do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, after the event, where you can also step back, get a little bit of a not in the moment perspective of what really happened, and then learn how you can also grow from it as well, but still have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Frank, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So I got a few things. I just want to add to first of all, to Fausto's timeline piece, where you talked about doing everything up front. And that it's easy, you've got everybody's attention. I couldn't agree more. The other thing that I always throw in there when brides or grooms or couples or whoever is asking me, hey, what's your opinion on us? What should the beginning look like? What should the middle, what should we do where? I always let them know the most put together the room will be also. The tables are clean. There's nobody bussing any plates, dirty plates. Everyone has their jackets on. Everyone's hair is still up. It couldn't be more pristine in that initial moment. And then if you do that an hour later, napkins, silverware, different catering companies with different schedules, picking up plates and moving things and all of the above, all that stuff kind of can come into play if you do that at the wrong time. So first of all, I love that. The second thing that I wanted to add in there was, I love the idea of having one person that's kind of overarching over everything. And the reason that I say that is no business just runs with a bunch of different businesses and everyone walking perfectly in unison. There still needs to be a leader. The biggest companies, Apple has a decision maker above everyone. And then they have a bunch of people who make a lot of other decisions, but they have one person that's walking everyone forward or backwards, whatever that company is doing, right? So I think it's really key to think about that in the wedding industry, is that maybe that's a good business to start thinking about getting into. I love the idea of where, like you said, it's hey, I'm here, I'm hiring these people, and I'm going to walk us all forward, and I'm that point of contact. The couple are my client only. Everyone else is now they are my clients. and I'm going to move them forward. I love that. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up was, in businesses, when everyone works under the same umbrella, it's really easy to have those conversations that you talked about. What did I do wrong? What did you do wrong? I think being able to do that with other businesses is really challenging, but extremely fulfilling. And if you can do that in a right way, it's impactful. David and myself on Clubhouse, it really grinds my gears when DJs this. We're willing to take it because we want to help everybody move forward with these things. And I think that's basically what you're doing. You're calling everyone together and saying, give me your best shot. Here were my concerns. Let's all solution them and move forward. I love those ideas. That's all great.
And I'll take it a step further, and especially for DJs, because this is really happening in Maine right now. There's a venue that I approached during the pandemic. So while everybody else was doing all of these other things to pivot, I went to this venue and I said, hey, I have an idea. I said, why don't I create menus for you? I don't want to be exclusive. You sell them, you mark them up, but this is what I want financially. And if they want to hire us for planning, here are our 2 tiers. They loved it. So we made, during the pandemic, $300,000 off of them. And they were selling it. But what I saved was commissions. So they became my salespeople, and I didn't have to pay a commission out. I got paid what I wanted. I didn't have to collect the tax. And the client wasn't mine. The client was theirs. So it worked. And then they started doing it with DJs. So they would bring in DJs, but they weren't getting it. They didn't want to understand that they were working for the venue, and then they would become these renegades. And then finally, this one DJ company came in and like, we want to do this. And so now they're making a lot of money. And so I literally, since we opened back up in May of this year in Maine, I have been working at that venue except for one Saturday so far. I have everything that's there. It literally is 9 minutes from my house. I don't need to be, it doesn't have to be a 6-figure, but there's been a lot of really good weddings there. But at the end of the day, I am home by 9:30. Nice. And I've had a really easy, low stress day, except for the one with the heart attack. But other than that, it's been pretty good.
Absolutely. Excuse me. All right. Well, Fausto, we always ask our guests for an hour of their time. We're going a little bit over that right now. Do you have a few minutes to just kind of wrap up? I want to put a whole bow on this preferred professional currency. If you have the time to do that, I just want to respect your time. So, I titled the night show, do you know what your preferred professional currency is valued at? And I'll tell you, the first time I heard you talk about this, I absolutely loved it. So for maybe some of our listeners who jumped on late or just still are not kind of in tune with what we mean by preferred professional currency, number one, talk a little bit about that, and then talk about why a person would want, or a business would want to know the value of their preferred professional currency. I mean, I think it's obvious, but still.
So for me, I never want to kick back from anybody I do business with. It's not my style. It never has been. It just doesn't work for me. But what I do want is I want to call in my favors, and that's where PPC came in. And so when I track it for reason. I do 4 style shoots a year. I follow the seasons. And so with that said, I have never once paid for floral. I have never once paid for a venue. I have never once paid for music. I have never paid for alcohol. And so when you call in these favors, you sort of know that you have buying power because that's your preferred professional currency. So when I do a style shoot, there are reasonings behind it. It's a new venue that I want to be attached to. I want my name on it. I'm going to do the style shoot. I have literally gotten the okay for it to be published, and I'm going to turn it into a networking event for the industry to showcase the venue, not showcase me, but showcase the venue, which then in light makes me shine to the venue owners. You see, there's always a reasoning behind everything. Yep. Then I call in those favors by knowing what I make everybody. So from the rental company, the DJs, the bands, photography, flowers, cake people, I know what I bring in for everybody, to the last penny. I started every year. And so the beginning of the year, January to December 31st. And then I just, an Excel spreadsheet. So it just tallies it up. So you can instantly go, oh, that's what I made them. And having that power And I use power as not a mean way, or like I'm going to hold this against you, as a working tool for you, because every business does it. And why shouldn't you have an ROI if I have made you a ton of money and I haven't asked you for anything ever? And so if I'm asking you for a favor, hey, there's this new venue, I need you to play music. Absolutely. I never have to beg anybody. That's constant yes. And so that's where preferred professional currency came up, and my whole idea for this whole thing of tracking it. And I was doing it without realizing it, that I gave it a name. And so for me, it's an important thing. It's actually one of the biggest tools that I do my business with, because it's my biggest ROI, is knowing what I make my professionals. And it's also helped me with vendor meals. And I've said it with different, with photographers or DJs, you know, I'll say to somebody, I'm like, well, how much do you charge? Or I know if it's a new person, I'm like, well, you're $1,200, $1,500, whatever you are. I said, what if I can get you $2,000 from the client? Will that make you happy? Yeah. What can I do for that? I'm like, well, don't ask for a meal. I said, I'll get you $2,500. Oh, no, but I need a meal. I'll give you $3,000. I need a meal, $4,000. And still they don't get it. I'm like, bring your own dinner for $4,000. Pack a peanut butter sandwich. You'll make money. And so that's why it's important to track everything you make for anybody. So, you know, I know it's harder for other people that don't bring in, but I think a lot of times DJs get asked for referrals. So every time you ask for a referral, use those referrals. Even if you didn't make them the money, use the referral as currency. And so you track it. And a good way to do it, if somebody asks, is at the end of the week, if you have given the same person 5 referrals, send them an email. I sent you this person, this person, this person, because you have a paper trail of it. And you're also in their face, and they're constantly seeing your name, and they're going, oh my God, they referred me again. Oh my God, they referred me again. That is your currency. So that's how it works for me.
I think it's a great idea. It really is. And I mean, like you said, I mean, DJs, of course, like we get our handful of referrals that we hand out, but of course not as much as other people, right? Because you got the pyramid, just like you talked about, you know, so of course, like the first thing on the pyramid is going to give out more referrals than the next item and so forth. But yeah, I mean, I think it's great. Not only is it a currency, but it's also just a courtesy too. You know, hey, I love working with you. I enjoy our professional relationship. I don't have to say certain things because we're on the same page. And so it just makes my day more efficient. It makes your day more efficient. So I'm going to continue to put your name out there. And then of course that person reciprocates that by doing that when they're above you on that couple's pyramid. You know, so I think it's really impactful. And I'm sure when you're talking about especially the role that you all have from the brokerage side or not the brokerage side, but the production side of things, where it's more, you know, looking at the whole thing, it probably gives you a lot of leverage in those conversations when there is a vendor who was a preferred professional that's slowly turning into a renegade by your terms, right? It allows you to kind of bring them back in and say, hey, last 3 years, let's not forget this big number right here that I got you.
Exactly. And when we do have our meetings with all of our preferred professionals, there's always a spreadsheet out so that they can see it. So I make it quite known that it's right there. You know, it's a slight push, like say, okay, remember I have 4 style shoots that I need favors and I'm calling them in. And so it's really interesting to me when I hear people saying all the time that they have to pay. And one thing I will say for DJs that's really, really a smart thing to do is that when you are working at a venue and you want to be more in their face, I don't care what people say about, oh, you shouldn't bother me with emails, we're not going to read it. Trust me, they read everything they get. And the more you tell them that you're there and then pose it with a question, hey, I just booked this wedding and I'm going to be here. Has anything changed? Have them write back to you, because now you've opened the dialogue and they want to see that. Because oh, do you need a certificate of insurance? You know, all of those things that venues go, wow, they're on top of it. And if you do business with a venue and you're on the list, every January, just send your certificate of insurance so they don't have to hunt you down, because it's the number one thing that pisses them off. So
I'll tell you one thing. Anybody who has watched this or watches the replay or listens to the podcast version, if you don't if you don't understand, you don't grasp that not just in our industry, but any small business industry, that two of the most vital lifelines of your business is going to be relationships and referrals, which kind of go hand in hand with each other. I don't know any other way to crack it over your head. And I think that it's like mad important. Well, we definitely know who this is. This is Bobby. I have no doubt. Going back to this preferred professional currency, PPC. I like that better because I can say that easier. Going back to PPC. If you're a planner, if you're a venue person, if you're not doing this, like, start doing it right away. And I'm glad that you mentioned that you did it via spreadsheet, because I knew somebody was going to say, well, how does he do it? How, does he use a program? How does he do it? Just good old fashioned spreadsheet. I love that. And if you're not one of those categories, I think you also should really focus on, as I said in the title of the show, like, what is the value of your PPC? Because if it's not very big, you need to fix that. You need to change that. You need to create those relationships where you have a very high PPC number, because I promise you everything else will be nothing but beneficial in that process.
Absolutely. And it gives you more buying power. Like, if you make a venue over $2 million a year, they're going to look at you differently than somebody that brings them one job a year.
Yeah.
It's simple math.
Yep. Man, Frank, I don't know about you, man, but this has been a fascinating show. I knew it was going to be going into it, but this has genuinely, honestly been a fascinating show.
Yeah. No, and I know we talk about it being like one of those full circle moments for the clubhouse adventure that we all went on, but I remember I was in a room and it was with Bea, and we talked about pre-show together. It was with Bea, and Fausto jumped in, and I am not familiar with like the industry outside of either my own little area or the DJ world, which I was just kind of venturing into. And Fausto just came into this clubhouse room, kind of like what you said, David. It was like just like swinging, and I was like, I can totally get down with this, because this is exactly how I roll. I like the just clear cut. So to be able to have Fausto come on Wedding Business Growth with us has been a pleasure and a true full circle moment. So I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Well,
and to build upon that, to know that we have Terica and I almost said Fabo, Terica and Bobby watching, who hit. So the funny part about it is that when the first time that I think I was exposed to Fausto was in a room that Terica invited me to be a part of. And then when I saw the dynamic between the two of them, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to love this dude already. I just know it because I already love Terica to death. And then when Bobby had mentioned that you and her had a awesome friendship with each other and everything, I was like, yeah, I am definitely with my people right now. This is where I want to be. So I agree with you 100%, Frank. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm going to pitch it live on Wedding Business Growth right now. We need to have a clubhouse roundtable live on Wedding Business Growth.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Let's do it. Let's round everybody up and find. The hardest part is probably going to be finding a time to do it. It may be something that we just have to record and not necessarily do at our normal time, which is fine, and then we could just broadcast it, as one of the shows. But I think that's a great idea. I really do.
Agreed.
I really do. Well, Fausto, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for just sharing your wisdom and you're genuine. What I love most about you is you're genuine. And I could list a lot of things I really like about you, but I love that you're genuine. And I love that you really care about helping people be a better version of themselves. And that's kind of one of the goals that I always felt like has been my mission, not just in this industry, but just with people in general, is not making them better in a negative way, but making them a better version of what they already are. And I see so much of that in you. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I'm going to say one last thing for all my DJ friends that are out there. If you've ever worked with me, the number one thing that my DJs have always done for me is they always play Total Eclipse of the Heart before anybody comes into the room, because it is my song. I am probably the only fan in America.
Love it.
I'll put it on and I can hear it, and they do it for me because they know how much I love that song. And so for them, I always appreciate it.
Yeah, I have a venue I work at where the one of the people in charge, she's a huge Taylor Swift fan, so she always asks me for whatever popular Taylor Swift song is in the moment, or whatever one she wants to hear in that moment. And I would agree that relationship has blossomed just from that simple act of just playing the songs they want to hear. I love that.
Well, I tell you right now, if you ever come across David or myself DJing anything that you are also present at, I can assure you that it will get played.
Yes.
Awesome. And just so you know how crazy I am, here's my mask, and it's Bonnie Tyler.
That's awesome.
Too funny. All right, well, we're gonna wrap things up. Fausto, stick around with us if you don't mind for just a couple minutes after we go off live here. Frank, man, good to see you, buddy. I can't wait for us to be able to schedule. I know we have something coming up in September where we're going to be together, so maybe we'll find a way to do a live show in a place with a much better internet than the last time we tried to do a live show together in the same building.
Yeah. And real quick, actually, Fausto, just for everyone out here listening or listening back, on the replay, tell everyone real quick, how can they find you? What things are you doing within the industry coming up? Is there anything special you kind of want to tell everybody about?
Well, thank you for that. Yep, I'm actually going to be speaking at CaterSource in July. Actually, I'm leaving for Miami on the 18th. My class is on Tuesday. I'm also an ambassador this year for CaterSource. It's also bittersweet because it's my last year as an ICA board member. So this is my last hurrah with them. So that's kind of, sad. And then I'll also be speaking at ABC World in November. I think it's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Then I fly home real quick, do a wedding, and then I fly out for Vegas where I'll be speaking at Weddings MBA. And then you can find me on, Instagram, Facebook. And I do have a book coming out. It's just getting finished because we have to get all the permission for the photos and stuff from the photographers. So that's my selfish plug.
Gotcha. Well, we appreciate it.
Well-deserved, though. Well-deserved plug. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us on Wedding Business Growth. Don't forget every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are here to help you build upon the business of your business. And we really appreciate everybody participating tonight in the live chat and live conversations. Don't forget, you can listen to the replays on our YouTube channel or our Facebook group. If you're not a part of our Facebook group, we'd love to have you join us. And of course, you can hear the audio versions of all of our shows on any podcast provider, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast, we're there. So we look forward to everybody joining us, hopefully again next week. Until then, have a great week. We'll see you next